All right, Michael, this front page story of the Daily Telegraph is one that I'm sure will also cause major drama around the country tomorrow. Shameful is the headline. Maggots amid 274,000 cases of aged care neglect. The country's shameful aged care system diminishes Australia as a nation and is leaving out elderly to be treated cruelly. A damaging Royal Commission interim report into the sector says the long-awaited draft report entitled Neglect condemns the horrifying, shocking and cruel system, with commissioners calling for urgent resources to allow older Australians to live in their homes while also tackling the liberal use of chemical restraints in nursing homes. Now, Australia's aged care system is in a shocking tale of neglect, according to that particular report. The scathing findings describe an industry driven by money and calls for urgent action. Take a look at the package from today.
Unkind, underfunded, unacceptable. The Aged Care Royal Commission's interim report confirming the worst when it comes to the treatment of the nation's most vulnerable.
The Prime Minister warned us that we would hear some bad stories. What shocked us all has been the extent of that.
The draft report says it's uncovered a shocking tale of neglect, finding the aged care system is unkind and uncaring and one that diminishes Australia as a nation. Aged care services are underfunded, mostly poorly managed and fail to meet the needs of older citizens. The commissioners are calling for immediate action when it comes to providing more home care packages, less use of chemical restraints and more help for young people in aged care. They're also demanding a fundamental overhaul of the design and regulation of the sector.
It puts governments on notice, it puts the industry on notice, and it puts the Australian community on notice that we need to change the way that we approach how we care for older Australians.
The final report is due for release late next year. Elizabeth Tilley, Sky News.
Let's hear what Ian Yates has had to say. He's an advocate for the aged care industry.
The interim report shows us that aged care is not meeting the needs, our aged care system is not meeting the needs of enough older Australians, and clearly is failing far too many.
Michael Owen, your thoughts on this damning report, interim report, as we have referred to?
Yeah, well, it's made, as it should rightfully, made the front page of most newspapers for tomorrow's editions. And it should come as no surprise, though, because the aged care industry has been under the spotlight for quite some time. Certainly in South Australia in 2017 we had the Oakden aged care scandal where all range of neglect, maltreatment of residents at a state aged care facility was revealed, and that sparked a lot of these inquiries. We've also had, going back even further than that, there are reports about problems 10 years ago. There was the kerosene bath scandal as well that happened. So what I worry about, I suppose, is that we're going to have another report, another Royal Commission saying how bad it all is. There'll be some attention, but without the commitment to dramatic action, without money going into the sector, without some mandatory staff-to-patient ratios in those homes, and you know, again, looking at what some of those workers in aged care facilities are paid, increasing the standard of care. A lot of the people try their best, but a lot of the people that are caring for our elderly are not particularly well qualified. So it comes down to what you and I and everybody else, how we want to live when we're old, how we want our parents and our loved ones to be treated. A lot of people, sadly, put their parents or their loved ones in an aged care home. Life gets busy, they forget, they might visit them once a month, and these people are forgotten about, and it's very sad. And in some worst cases, some people are more concerned about the inheritance they might be getting than about the the dignity of their loved ones as they get old.
Alexis, your thoughts?
Look, I agree with Michael in that we all knew that there were issues in the industry. This should come as no surprise. We've been hearing these horror stories for years now. But I think what a lot of people have been surprised to hear is the extent and how common these issues are. As we've said, it's absolutely shocking, and every single one of us should be ashamed to know that this is going on in our country, because you don't have to have a loved one in care for it to affect you, because, like it or not, we're all going to get old one day, and we want to know that when we reach that vulnerable stage of our lives, we're going to get the best care possible. And sadly, what this has shown is that's, you know, not happening all too often. What I would like to point out, though, is that it seems to be mostly a problem with the system and not most of the time with the workers themselves. So obviously there are always going to be bad apples in the system, definitely. They should always be called out. But I mean, in my role at news.com.au, I've spoken to a lot of workers in the industry, and they tell absolutely horror stories about what they have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. They're run off their feet. They are, as we've mentioned, the staff to patient ratio is just not there. They're battling very low pay and really emotional, draining conditions every single day. In my opinion, these people are heroes and they deserve the utmost respect. So yes, I think it's really important that we're shining the spotlight on this industry and the issues that are going on there, absolutely. But I think that it's important that the blame does not get placed on the everyday workers, who most of whom are doing the very best they can in very challenging circumstances.
Well said, Alexis, and as you say, let's hope that we can get some really solid outcomes out of this. Just recapping, the key interim findings showed a shocking tale of neglect, of unkind and uncaring behaviour for the elderly. It has diminished Australia as a nation, according to the particular report, and the workforce involved in aged care working is underpaid and lack skills.